It seems that every quarter we have the same discussion. Yet here we are again. The bad has gotten worse, sentiment continues to fall, and still here we sit, seemingly beating a dead horse that just, well, investors love to flock to in hopes of making a fortune when the turnaround finally comes. You guessed it, I80 Gold has again reported their earnings. And it's like the same old song and dance. Somehow, the higher the price of gold goes, the more money they somehow lose. It takes a special kind of talent. Really. Let's dive in. I80 Gold has reported their first quarter financials again, and while revenue has grown, so too have the losses. Revenue in the first quarter hit $14 million, up substantially over the $8.4 million in top-line revenue announced in the first quarter of 2024. As has been the story for a number of names across the sector, the improvement here wasn't really operational. I80 sold 4,952 ounces in the first quarter of this year versus 4,061 ounces last year, a 22% gain in percentage terms, but not a lot in real ounces, but rather a function of the price of gold. Those functions were sold at an average price of $28.25 an ounce this year versus $20.63 an ounce last year. The big story here is the net loss, which has ballooned from $19.7 million or 6 cents per share in Q1 of 2024 to $41.2 million or 10 cents per share this year. The loss here was attributed to a number of major expenses, including $9.5 million in pre-development, evaluation, and exploration expenses, $8.2 million in interest expenses, and $17.7 million in losses related to fair value measurements on gold and silver prepay agreements. In terms of cash flow, I80 saw cash flows used in operating activities decline slightly from $25.2 million to $22.7 million. Cash and cash equivalents, meanwhile, improved marginally here, going from $13.1 million to $13.5 million on a year-over-year basis. But cash was actually down from $19 million as of December 31st, despite raising $16.2 million in an equity financing and $2.5 million from an ATM program. In terms of financials, the real story here is the balance sheet. I80 finished the first quarter with total current assets of $44.9 million, alongside current liabilities of $85.7 million, leaving them with a working capital shortfall of $40.8 million. This shortfall has basically led to a rob Peter to pay Paul scenario in a figurative sense, with I80 Gold on March 31st entering into a new gold and silver prepay agreement with National Bank. That agreement calls for 6,864 ounces of gold and approximately 346,000 ounces of silver to be provided to National Bank by September 30th, the funding from which was used to pay off a separate gold and silver prepay agreement with Orion that was due on March 31st. In other words, the arrangement with National Bank allowed the company to keep the lights on for a few more months without the need to convince Orion yet again to delay shipment of the metal they are owed. And while a recapitalization effort is underway for I80, it doesn't seem like a whole lot of progress is being made. A number of financing options are said to be on the table, including senior lending facilities, royalty sales, non-core asset sales, and terming out quarterly gold prepays. To I80's credit, they did secure an agreement post-quarter end with Aramet for $11.6 million in net proceeds from a prepay agreement related to sulfide material. But those funds aren't expected to hold the company for very long at their rate of burn. In any case, the second phase of the recapitalization plan is slated to be completed by the end of the second quarter of 2026, which aligns with the date of maturity on an outstanding convertible loan with Orion. Anyways, let's take a look at the production data here and get out from the weeds a bit. When it comes to production data, I80 is a bit guarded. Rather than telling us how many ounces were produced in a given quarter, they just tell us how many ounces were sold in a given quarter, and from what mine those ounces came from. As we've already identified, gold sales in Q1 totaled 4,952 ounces. The bulk of those ounces came from the Granite Creek underground project, which produced around 3,100 ounces. Ruby Hill, meanwhile, contributed 452 ounces, and Lone Tree contributed just under 1,400 ounces. Unsurprisingly, I80 is also rather opaque when it comes to how much those ounces cost to produce. They do, however, provide mining cost, processing costs, and site and general administrative expenses on a per-ton basis, alongside royalties, capex, and exploration expenses in dollar terms, which is kind of useful if you're an expert in this stuff, I suppose. In any case, total costs of goods sold for the quarter amounted to $10.8 million, which, when spread across the 4,952 ounces sold, comes out to a costing of $2,174 an ounce. The same mental gymnastics a year ago worked out to a costing of $2,052 an ounce, so costs are on the way up, which isn't exactly shocking here. All right, so let's wrap it up. It's always easy to be critical, and a lot harder to be thoughtful. Despite the poor financial state of the company, to I80's credit, the first quarter saw preliminary economic assessments completed for 5 separate gold properties, which is part of their new development plan. They also completed 15,000 feet of underground drilling at Cove, completed modifications to the pumping system at Granite Creek, and received a decision record from the BLM for the commencement of underground portals at the Archimedes Underground. I80 also expects to release feasibility studies on a number of projects later this year. The company and their management team clearly recognize that their balance sheet is constrained, and quite frankly, us shoving it in their face doesn't do a whole lot of good either. The new team has been handed a shit sandwich, and they're doing their best to smile while they chew it. Despite these constraints, development is moving forward on a number of projects at once, and production is expected to hit between 30 and 40,000 ounces of gold this year, which should help pay for some of the development. All right, everybody, we are in the thick of earnings season. If there's stories you want us to cover, please let us know in the comment section. If you want more of these earnings videos, just check out our channel. We got lots of them for you. Also, if you could do me a favor, if you enjoyed this content, please smash that like button, subscribe, and ring that notification bell. All right, everybody, thank you for watching.